States, many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. A few things I'm going to get into, ISIS and a lot of the things we have going on with our foreign policy right now and foreign relations. And going to kind of start off the broadcast with getting into something I was talking about last couple broadcasts, and that's the whole, vaccination program going on with the youth, and how Big Pharma and the lobbyists and the government sellouts, they're pushing this type of stuff on our children, and a lot of people are still unaware that you could opt out, and there is a big movement going on that a lot of parents are waking up and going, this is way too much, and they're trying to force it on us. And even ones that do waivers sometimes will get a little resistance from the state, and we've seen examples of that. But I have a clip here from We Are Change, ex-Big Pharma insider Guy's land talk message to the youth. And it's not new news that Big Pharma and the government are basically in cahoots to push this upon you. And, there's a need a lot of times for, science to try to help out when diseases pop up. And I don't want people to say, just don't trust science at all, and we shouldn't ever think that a vaccine will ever help. There are cases that these can help. There's proven science out there that shows there's ways to help, and there might be natural ways, and there might be ways that you might need to get more of a concentrate out of plants or animals to be able to get what you need. And that, combined with the evolution of science that we've had, there are good scientists out there trying to actually help, but Big Pharma is big business, and I believe it to be a reckless business. They have this immunity that allows them to get away with, oops, well, that didn't work out like we wanted it to. But, we're trying to save people, and it's experimental, and the government said that we should just push it off the shelves because we could have, a new type of bird flu, and, oh yeah, bird flu. They lift even more requirements that Big Pharma is supposed to meet, allowing them to gain that type of immunity. But I'm going to play this clip here from We Are Change. Make sure you go check out wearechange.org. Go to We Are Change on YouTube too and give them a thumbs up, subscribe. They definitely do a lot of hard-hitting pieces, and for a small independent outlet, they definitely get a lot of good information out there. So here goes this.
Cope with We Are Change, and I'm here with the one and only Guy. Nice to see you, Guy.
Nice to see you, Alec.
Guy, you're a legend in your own right. You wrote the Medical Mafia, which was very groundbreaking to researchers, especially when you portrayed Big Pharma as basically a business, not looking out for the actual health of its customers. Also, your court trial, out of the 11 witnesses, only 7 were used, and they were the college's witnesses, so it was basically a complete slaughter. It wasn't a very fair trial. Basically, what I wanted to ask you was, if you had any message to tell the youth of today who are very discouraged, who are waist deep in all this, not really negative information, but information based on the conspiracy, very doom and gloom information, what would you tell them? One message to humanity, but more targeted towards the youth. What would you tell them?
I would tell them, first of all, get informed. As long as we will believe that the government is serving the people, there's nothing we can do. We will remain serving government, electing government, financing government. This is the number one. You have to get informed and see how government is serving big money and not the people. And it has always been. It's nothing. It's nothing new. So it means letting go of our belief system in the Constitution, in the country, serving the country, all of those things are totally false. And this is the conspiracy. The conspiracy tells you that. But the problem with the conspiracy is that once I realize what's going on, I become depressed.
Yes.
And it's so tied up. It's getting tighter and tighter. I mean, you can be put in jail with no reason, no trial, for an unlimited period of time. That is total slavery. Total slavery. So this is the situation we're in now. What can we do? This is the question. But first of all, we have to realize there's no way out in this system. We cannot change it. We cannot improve it. We cannot go back to what it was before. It was the same, but not as openly. It was not as obvious.
Yeah.
And we have grown in consciousness. So we, as we are going higher and higher, we can see more the big picture. But there's no way out. There's no way we can go back. And there's no way we can improve it. So what are we going to do? We have to go to phase 2. Go to the big boss. Where is the big boss of this system? Who has the real power? And then you will end up to not this finger like this, but like that. You will turn the finger in towards the real authority. If we don't pay, if we don't vote, and we don't pay income tax anymore, there is no government. If I don't buy at Walmart anymore, here, I don't buy at Walmart, there is no Walmart. If I don't don't eat at McDonald's, there is no more McDonald's. So I have the power. The power is within the individual. So the individual creates this system, this hell on earth we're living in. Well, if I created it, I can create the hell on earth. I can create paradise on earth. But not changing hell. Changing the creatrix that I am. Becoming conscious of who I am. That I am the authority. And then I can go to phase 3, which is behaving differently in every field of my life. Stop believing in being a Canadian, an American, an Italian. It's not true. You are much more than that. You are a divine entity. I am, you are, and we all are. Oh. So and then if I look at the big picture, we're all but one. We're all one. We're all one. We're all the same creatrix at the top. So why would I limit myself to being a Canadian, an American, an Italian? It's a limit? No. Stop seeing the others as enemies. So no more fighting for religion, the Muslim, the Christians, all this. Stop belonging to a country, to a religion, to a spirituality, to a political group. Stop all this. You are not a member of something. You are everything. So it's another very important way of seeing things, totally different. And then I want to be very positive because, well, when I say positive, I don't like this word. Things will change. We are becoming, what's going on right now? Consciousness. Consciousness being the perception of the truth. So consciousness is going up, is raising. We're raising in consciousness. And the more we see the truth, the more we become who we truly are, the real persons that we are, the more we create paradise on earth. So yes, the more I change, the more this world will change. But you will not see the changes at the beginning. But keep going. This is where we're going. We are becoming who we really are. Creatrix of this universe and behaving as divine. What's the divine? The divine is the supreme authority. So the authority is not outside. It's inside everything, inside everybody. And we, human beings, can become aware of this, conscious of this, and behave as such. Not behave as sheep, giving our power away and our money away to the doctor, to the government, to insurance companies, to bankers.
Yeah.
You see, we give our money and our power away to everybody, and then we complain. We complain and we fight. We want the shepherd to be a good shepherd. Well, are you ready not to be a sheep anymore? The shepherd won't change, because when there's a sheep, there has to be a shepherd, because there's a wolf. Here we are in the drama with the sheep and the bad wolf and the good shepherd. The good shepherd is the government, the bad wolf is the private, is the big business, and the sheep is the people. So we are afraid of the bad wolf, so we think we need a shepherd. And we do, which is the government. We do, as long as we think that we're sheep. But the moment I realize that I'm not a sheep, oh, the rest just fades out. It doesn't exist. It's a game. It's a play. It's a play. It's a theater, but we believe it. It's like watching a movie and believing that you are the people in the movie. No, it's a movie. But we have believed in it. We still believe that we are sheep. We cannot think otherwise. We cannot do otherwise. We have to pay income tax. We have to obey the authorities. The law is necessary. Government we can't live without, and so on and so on and so on. And the banks are so good that they lend us money. Isn't that nice? And we still believe this. There's no way you're going to change this system. You can only get out of it. Now, getting out of the system does not mean that I'm going to run in the forest and hide and run away from it. Not at all. It means that I will stop being a slave. And what is a slave of this system? A slave in the system is a citizen. A citizen is a slave. And we're proud to be American citizen, Canadian citizen. Well, I'm not proud of being a citizen. And I don't want to be a citizen. What is a citizen? A citizen is a subject of a sovereign. So they made us believe that the sovereign is the government, is the state, and that we are the citizen of the sovereign, the subject of the sovereign, so that the sovereign makes the law and we obey. Oh, yeah? No, not for me. So I let go of citizenship. How do we... And we are going there. There's no way I can still belong to government, because we belong to government. We think we are free. We are free individuals in a free country. Come on, it's all false. You know, you can be put in jail anytime. So you are not free. We're not free. And but we are only. How can we become free? It's only when we stop being citizen. I call it the death of citizenship. It's stop the agreement. There is an agreement. It is not said, of course. We were not told there was an agreement, but there's an agreement. Tacit agreement between the sovereign state and the citizen, in which we agree to have rights recognized by the Constitution, and to be granted some privileges by the state. And it just letting go of those. We don't need those rights. We don't need those rights. We've got them all. I am the ultimate authority. I've got all the rights. Not over the others, over myself. And my soul, the divine inside me, The ultimate authority is the one I obey. And that's all. So I don't need their security and their protection. I don't need rights. We don't need rights. Now we're fighting over good rights and bad rights and no rights. Keep your rights. Do whatever you want with them. I don't want them. I don't need them. I know who I am. So this is what it is to think differently. We're getting there. We needed to be shocked, to get a kick in the butt, to lose everything, to let go of all our illusions, of our beliefs. Trust yourselves. Trust yourselves as creatrix and creators that we have created hell on earth. We needed this to realize that as long as we do not remember who we are, that we are creating hell on earth. But we can create paradise on earth. Definitely. And not only we can, we will. We will create it. We will. And we can all participate, each one in our own way, participate in making it happen. It can be little things like this, or, little things we can do. Everybody can participate in making this paradise on earth happen. And it's the end of the old world. Humanity was a transition between animality and identity. This new world that we're moving into. It was a transition. We needed the transition. Fine. It is now over. Don't try to hang on to the old things or go back to what we used to know that was better. It was not better, but we were not conscious enough to see it. We are reaching a point now when we become aware, where we become aware of reality of who we are, and we behave as such. And it will happen. It cannot not happen.
Extremely thought-provoking, extremely original, extremely inspirational as well. Thank you, Guy.
Okay, that was from We Are Change. Check out We Are Change on YouTube and check out wearechange.org. Always some great information that they bring to light, and great interviews, and that was someone that was in Big Pharma and seen what was going on and understood it and left Big Pharma and went through what she went through trying to expose it, and it was one of those things that she really discovered, what tyranny is, and, how she as an individual was not being treated as a free person, that you were being treated as a slave. And, that's what we try to bring to light. I try to do it on this broadcast. There's many other broadcasts out there that are doing that. And it's trying to bring to light the power of the individual and what true liberty and freedom mean. Trying to explain that we can agree to disagree. We don't have to abridge each other's rights to be able to have our own rights. Like she was saying, keep your rights. I don't want them because mine are already there. I cannot lose my rights because you decide you want to take them, and I don't want your rights. This shouldn't be a battle back and forth. And I think the divide and conquer has worked well for the elite, and they're willing to keep pushing it. And you see it with all the race baiting and, divide Republican, Democrat, left, right. It's a really divisionary tactic that's been used forever. Give a shout out to the people in the chat room: Jax Rocks, JJ, Joe, Jules, Planet X, Captain Gringo. Thank you all for joining us in the chat and tuning in. If you are not in the chat room, you can get to the chat if you go to ucy.tv/ATN or atnewsradio.com. And always great people in the chat room and some interesting discussions, and depending on who pops in and who doesn't, depends on how big the conversations get. There's some people out there that definitely don't hold back. And we appreciate all of them. It's really the differences that we have, that when we share our viewpoints with each other, we really gain more knowledge, really. We become more aware people. And I think that's extremely, extremely important. When you preach to the choir all the time, it's not really fulfilling, because you do want to reach a different audience. You want to collab on everything, because we all have different viewpoints on a lot of issues. But we all live in the same world, and we should be able to live free and have things and not abridge other people's rights. And that should be just the main basic, law, the non-aggression principle. And we just cannot get past this. We need government. And I'm glad alternative media really sprung up. But there was a discussion between Ben Swan and Ron Paul, and it really got me. And it's something that I've seen kind of happening, and I think what it's going to end up doing is weeding out the people that there's going to be two people that are wore out and don't have the financing to keep their operation going. Other ones are people that were kind of in it for the fame, and they don't see it as being popular anymore. They're just going to leave. The people that are going to stay are the people that they have so much of a passion for it, and maybe are skimming by on the financing, which is kind of like what I do. I have a heart for this. I really believe that we need to keep the message alive about freedom. If we give up, they win. And I think there's people waking up all over. And I don't know if it's completely losing momentum, but I think it is getting kind of washed out by other things, and a lot of the whacked out conspiracy theorists out there kind of wash over what true, alternative journalism or media is about. And this is Ben Swan talks with Ron Paul. Is alternative media losing momentum? And I'm going to go ahead and play this clip here. Maybe. if I can get it to play here. Let me give this another attempt here. I'm going to do something. I think it could be my browser, so I'm going to attempt something here. It should be good after this. Maybe. Hopefully I still have an internet connection. Yeah, I'm still connected to the network. Not sure what's going on here. So right here, it should be loading. Not sure here. Try this one more time. See what happens. Not sure why this does not want to load. I got one more option. I guess I can do this. Not the way I like doing it, but don't think it's going to work here. Not sure what's going on. Not sure what's going on here. Just does not want to play. Seems like I'm having an issue here. I think we might have it actually. Nope. Okay. I don't know exactly what is going on, but all of a sudden I just can't get anything. None of my audio is playing, and I'm hoping you guys can hear me. Okay. Well, I guess I'll attempt to read this article here once I get it back up. if it'll come back up. I don't know if my browser's just flipping out or what. Trying to see if anything weird is running on my machine. Make sure I don't have any issues. I don't see anything out of the normal. Okay. Now I'm going to pull these up. Okay, again, it wasn't a, what happened here? There we go. There was a video I was trying to play the clip from, and it was Ben Swan talks with Ron Paul as alternative media losing momentum. In a recent video for Voices of Liberty, former Texas Congressman Dr. Ron Paul interviewed investigative journalist Ben Swan about bias in the media, the threat posed by Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, and about the United States foreign policy. Given the current situation with ISIS in the Middle East, Paul started by asking how it differed from the situation in the Middle East 1 year ago when the U.S. government was pushing to go to war with Syria. Quote, a year ago, our efforts to tone down the war and to not expand the war were doing quite well, said Paul. But here, just recently, with some of the killings and the advance in description of ISIS, all of a sudden there's tremendous shift. Swan pointed out that a year ago, the American public overwhelmingly rejected that idea, and that was an enormous victory for the alternative media and for new media, because the old media continue to respond the same way they always have. And really, they did. We've seen that happen. It was pretty evident when it happened. They were really pushing for war with Syria. And thanks Planet X in the chat room for letting me know you could hear me. I was hoping so. When you look at how the media reacted, it was the Iraq war all over again. The propaganda was just everywhere. It was pushing for war. And we're seeing the same thing with the whole thing with ISIS. But like I said, they have no plan on wiping out ISIS. I can almost guarantee that. They might say that they're going to wipe out ISIS. They might say that they took out most of ISIS. But will they actually, go after ISIS? I don't believe so, only because that seems to be just how they do it. I think it's really as simple as that. And when we look at our foreign policy, and a lot of what we talked about before is really still relevant, and it seems that it's not being taken seriously. It really does. I don't believe that it's being taken seriously when you look at the actual threat that's being created. When you look that our presence there has helped fuel their ability to, recruit. It's pretty evident. They've been able to use our presence there, and I don't see how going in there and having our presence there more will help, unless you really just slaughter entire, populaces, which that's not humanity. We understand there's people, it's just like you or me or other people, some people might run away from a situation. Well, this area has become just too much. They're controlling me, so I'm going to move on. Other people say, this is my home, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to be bullied around. And they end up getting bullied around a lot of times with some of these extremist groups. They get killed. We definitely have a real problem with kind of going back on what we call for. And if you look at the whole situation again, I think you're going to find that we're buying into the same propaganda. And we become hypocritical to a point that if we look at the landscape that's been put out, it's to keep us divided and keep us at war. Because as long as we're at war with other people, we're not so much addressing their own corruption in front of us. And I think that's what's happened now. I think we have a situation where we're not addressing the corruption the way we should. As soon as this ISIS thing started growing out of control, which I think it's been allowed to grow out of control, and maybe they use the open borders to help inflate the fear. You get groped at the airport and a Muslim that's covered her face and everything, you can only pat down their face while they stick their hands down your pants. The border's wide open. We have problems. We have no care about our own people while we'll let violent people into the country. Not saying that we shouldn't allow, people into the country, but we're allowing the wrong people for their gain. Because guess what? You'll have more enemies. And they want you to have more enemies. Then you'll call out to government for help. That's what they want. They want you to ask for their help. And right now, we have people going, yeah, we need to go after ISIS. What's going to end up happening is they'll go after Assad. That is what will end up happening. Further on in this, says Swan said that images ISIS has released of their militants cutting off journalists' heads and slaughtering Christians in Iraq and Syria has created a sense of fear among Americans. What's different here is that with ISIS there is this fear, the propaganda fear that was much more and is much more successful than what you saw in Syria, said Swan. Because at the end of the day, regardless of where Americans fell on the issue of Syria, virtually no one was afraid of Assad over here. Again, they're using ISIS as a way to get to Assad. That's my belief. It says here, people have these archetypes, I think, built into their minds, said Swan, who went on to describe the tendencies people have to fall back and to say, okay, we shouldn't be involved everywhere in the world, but this time and on this occasion, now we got to go back and we've got to do something again. Swan pointed out that the mainstream media does not discourage Americans from these tendencies due to the fact that they are operating under a left-right paradigm. On the left or on the right, it doesn't matter where the media pretends to fall, they're all pushing for the same thing, intervention. When Paul asked Ben Swan about what projects he was working on and what reports he was trying to expose, Swan discussed the newest episode of Truth in Media. Swan explained that the episode was about cannabis and CBD oil, and the focus was on explaining to people not just what it is, but here's a real threat to that it faces in our government system. I think people are going to be very surprised to see while government is saying one thing, their actions on the other side of that issue are polar opposite. I'm going to scroll down through this article more. We'll get into that Truth in Media because I did want to cover that. If that'll play, we'll try to get into that. But I think we'll try to go ahead and go right into that. That way we can get that out of the way and see if it's even going to kick off. And for some reason this wants to play. So, we were talking about Big Pharma at the beginning and how, they basically try to force vaccinate your children, try to tell you that you must have it to go to school, not telling you that there are waivers. And it's been alternative media and word of mouth that's allowed people to find out about that. And at the same time, you have medical marijuana that there's a lot of evidence out there that proves that there's medical uses for it, and it's natural and it's less harmful than a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs, and you can do it in an oil form. That way you're not smoking it. This has helped people with epilepsy and other things. Well, Ben Swan, just in that article, was talking about his new Truth in Media. Feds say cannabis is not medicine while holding the patent on cannabis as medicine. And this is a pretty good one. I really want to urge everybody to find it on Facebook. It's Truth in Media. Fed says cannabis is not medicine while holding patent on cannabis as medicine. And you can find it on Ben Swan's channel there. So definitely please go, thumbs up it, subscribe to his channel, and leave a comment. And it's alternative outlets that are really pushing the charge to get information out that the mainstream withholds, because while a lot of times they might be getting money for commercials for Big Pharma, and they don't want to scare those advertisers off. That's why I really I pick handpick advertisers. I don't want anything that I don't promote. And hey, if they say, "Oh, you're too conspiratorial or something," and we don't want our products on your website, or don't mention us. Okay, fine. I've gotten by this long. I don't mind doing it. This is where my passion is, so I don't need someone else to finance me. I will do what it takes to get the information out and survive. And I'm thankful for the ones that are on my website. Most of them are affiliates. Some of them have, done work for me, so I, in return, gave them a spot on my website. And, that's things that we try to do for each other and try to promote each other. And, UCY has done so much for me. That's why I'm always promoting their Amazon store. This is a platform that has been given to me, and why would I not be thankful for that? And the work that Jules has put into this network is amazing, and why would I not be thankful for that? And I think most people out there are thankful when we are given these opportunities, and we urge other people to take advantage of the opportunities, let their voice be heard. But I'm going to get into this Truth in Media here from Ben Swan, benswan.com, Ben Swan on YouTube. So definitely go like the article, share it, spread the message.
Marijuana and cannabis freedom, the future has never been brighter. Right now, there's an awakening to the benefits of cannabis for medicinal purposes, specifically something called CBD oil. But is the new CBD craze being manipulated by media and politicians? If it weren't, we wouldn't need to do a show about it. The first step toward truth is to be informed. The CBD oil. You've probably heard of it by now, thanks to CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
People are lighting up all over the country.
Millions are now aware of the cannabinoid-rich oil being used to help children in Colorado with epilepsy, especially this one little girl, Charlotte Figge, after whom the Charlotte's Web strain of cannabis has been named.
It's okay, baby.
This is their daughter, Charlotte, having a seizure.
I wanted to learn what CBD oil and the push behind it is all about, so I traveled to Denver, Colorado, home to legalized marijuana and the Stanley brothers, the family behind the Charlotte's Web strain of cannabis oil. They were the ones to prove in Charlotte Figge's case that CBD-rich cannabis oil can prevent seizures in children.
We had this strain that we were actually going to use for cancer patients because studies have shown that CBD helps stops the metastasizing of cancer. So we went ahead and tried it because we knew it was very low in THC, and after she had it a week later, she went a week seizure-free.
Yeah, kitty.
The child, who had had 300 seizures a week, was now down to just one every 7 days.
Charlotte Figge's life was transformed by CBD oil. Now, to understand what is unique about CBD oil, you have to understand what a cannabinoid is. Now, in marijuana, there are multiple cannabinoids, including THC, CBD, CBN, CBA, and over 160 other compounds in the plant, including terpenes from the plant that create the most effective medicine. Now, to be clear, in order to get a high from cannabis, you need to have a high level of just one cannabinoid, THC. Again, that's just one particular cannabinoid. Now, in the Stanley's case, they began growing cannabis with lower levels of that cannabinoid THC and higher levels of CBD.
CBD is known to be a neuroprotectant. It's also one of the few things that causes neurogenesis. So it's not just seizures that this helps in epileptics, it's autoimmune disorders, whether that's cancer, Crohn's, lupus. There's so many different types of things. It's a huge anti-inflammatory, so all kinds of people would love to have this.
Today, in these stunningly short times since Charlotte Figge's story became famous, the Stanleys have thousands of patients on a waiting list for their CBD oil.
As you can see, it drips down. We're able to recapture the alcohol so we can reuse it. When it's done, we're left with an oil that is more like a molasses.
In fact, there are thousands of families who have already uprooted their lives and moved to Colorado for the CBD oil. Thousands more are on the way. They're called cannabis refugees.
I test it again, and then I can give it to the patients.
Well, all of that has led to other states wanting to legalize CBD oil. In fact, the governor of Utah, of all places, just signed a CBD bill into law legalizing possession of the oil. In addition, a bill in Alabama has now passed the legislature. It is awaiting the governor's signature to be signed into law in that state. In fact, lawmakers in Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina, Wisconsin, and many other states either have or will now consider CBD bills just this year.
Well, we're, at 20 states right now, so you already have 20 laws on the books that the people wanted or the people's representatives wanted.
Well, Mark's Law has a company in Denver called I Comply, which is fighting to keep small growers compliant with state regulation on marijuana. There are 8 strict guidelines that must be followed. Mark says states are jumping on board with CBD, but not with marijuana.
So I think what politicians certainly don't realize when they're trying to play to where the puck was and not where the puck is going to be is that regulating just one compound greatly underserves most of the patients who really need this medicine. So even along the lines of medical efficacy, it simply isn't reasonable.
Now, the reality that Mark addresses is how media and politicians are jumping on the CBD train because it doesn't get you high, but they're ignoring some very important medical facts about cannabinoids. I talked via Skype with Shauna Banda about this very issue.
Start out by telling me about when you were sick, the level to which you were sick, and what that looked like in your life.
Oh, I was, of course, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2002. And in that first year, I had my first bowel resection. Body was recognizing that something was wrong, and my immune system went into overdrive and essentially attacked itself. Your life starts to go downhill. You're in pain constantly, so you can't even think straight. It's hard to go through your day-to-day life when you're constantly thinking about the pain and how to get rid of it.
Shauna's condition was so bad that her teeth literally became soft and the roof of her mouth had turned black. She couldn't stand and says she parented her children from the couch. Described like having a stomach flu every day for years, despite all the medications and the doctors. Shauna was rotting from the inside out. Shauna's breakthrough came when she saw a YouTube documentary, Run from the Cure by Rick Simpson, which explained how to extract CBD and THC oil from marijuana.
In 2001, my family doctor informed me that there was nothing more they could do. They had nothing left to try on me, so I was on my own.
Shauna had started smoking marijuana just to be able to function, but she wasn't getting better. Shauna's husband at the time, he wanted to get her a vaporizer, but that vaporizer became the road to so much more.
He went and got me a very old-fashioned glass dome vaporizer from the 70s, and I was reading a book, and I pinched off that hose way too long, and oil started forming on the dome. And he went out and got me a spatula, and I started to scrape it out 3 times a day, and I put whatever I could get into a gel cap. And within 3 days, I didn't need the use of my cane anymore to walk, and I started healing quite rapidly. So rapidly that I started to write a journal.
That journal would become a book, Live Free or Die. Shauna's mantra for her own life and the lives of the people she continues to educate across the country on the benefits of cannabis oil today. But politicians and media are making CBD oil out to be the kind of good kind of cannabis, while arguing that THC is the bad kind of cannabis. Now listen, while that's not how any of this works, That is the case that is subtly being made. As that happens, two forces will likely come into play. Keep an eye on. Number one, in order to push the market away from the small sellers and the harvesters of CBD oil, states, along with the feds, will likely create a regulatory climate that is so difficult to manage that they will, through cronyism, force CBD oil into the hands of a few, which in turn limits supply and then forces the price of the oil to rise considerably. Number two, big pharmaceutical companies will likely begin putting out a safe and legitimate form of CBD oil. And that is already starting to happen.
GW Pharmaceuticals out of Great Britain has been producing Sativex, which is a 50-50 blend of CBD and THC. They have no real research behind whether or not 50-50 is even the right ratio, and they certainly don't include the other terpenes or other chemical compounds from the cannabis plant. So we could see the bone get tossed to the pharmaceutical dog. It's certainly a possibility. But I think if more people take a stand for really descheduling marijuana, regulating it in a manner similar to alcohol to allow adults who are already out there, supply and demand economics, wanting this plant and providing a safe way to be able to provide it, is really the best model to move forward with.
So what you need to know is where the U.S. government actually stands on this issue. Cannabis, marijuana. Today, it is still a Schedule I drug. That means, according to our government, it has no medicinal use whatsoever and has a high potential for abuse. Now, does our government really believe that? No. In 1999, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, filed for this patent for the use of cannabinoids for medicinal purposes. Also in 1999, they filed for a second patent, specifically for cannabis oil for the treatment of disease. That's right. Our government, through the taxpayer-funded Department of Health and Human Services, holds 2 patents on cannabinoids and cannabis oil to treat certain diseases like Alzheimer's and autoimmune diseases like Crohn's disease. Meanwhile, our government, through taxpayer-funded agencies like the Department of Justice, pursue, arrest, and imprison Americans who would attempt to access or use cannabis oil to heal their own bodies. Because in public, they claim cannabis oil is not medicine, and in private, they seek to own the rights to that medicine. Truth means that humanity is greater than politics. All right, so now you've been informed, so what's next? Well, now it's time to get engaged, and you can do that 3 ways. Number 1, you can click subscribe on our YouTube channel. It allows us to send you new content anytime it's created. It's good for that reason, but also it demonstrates to YouTube the value of this kind of content. Number 2, click on the link below that will take you to benswan.com, because there at the end of this story, we have put together an action plan, tangible steps that you can take to actually change the culture on this particular subject. How do you impact or change the culture of the people around you? Well, you do that through confrontation. Gentle, respectful, but confrontation of these issues. The only way we're ever going to change things is if we begin to confront the archetypes that people are building up in their minds. Finally, if you are not contributing to our project yet, I'd ask that you consider doing so. If you go to benswan.com/contribute, there you're going to find how you can help us to create more videos just like this one. This particular CBD video was created through crowdfunding, which means that thousands of people across the country believed in what we were trying to do and contributed hard-earned dollars to help make this happen. It doesn't just happen. And as you know by now, media is just not going to simply talk about this subject in an honest way. If we want truth in media, we have to make it happen. And I'm asking you to partner with us to do so.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. And again, go check out Ben Swan's stuff. benswan.com, Ben Swan on YouTube. And this is something that's been talked about for a long time. It's something that's been addressed for a long time. And now that, more states are passing it, we have to really come to a realization that they're going to try, through cronyism, toss the bone to the pharmaceutical companies. And we already know how the pharmaceutical companies operate. We we understand, well, even if they don't just throw the bone to them, that through, the whole GMO thing, just by altering the marijuana and getting patents on it and contaminating the supply of marijuana, plus the patents on top of it, you create the perfect situation. You create the perfect situation to go after and attack all the little growers, the people that are actually out there trying to help, trying to make a positive difference in people's lives, like the whole Charlotte's Web. That will be gone. You won't have that. So in this whole, evolution of states starting to accept it, it's going to get to a point where you're going to have to stand up when they try to regulate it harder. And again, this is why I always argued against legalizing. I said decriminalize. That it's people's choice and it shouldn't be a criminal act. But I don't really think it should be legalized. The grass that grows in your yard, that you don't have to get a permit, you don't have to be a certain age to have grass in your yard. Now, if you live in a city, you might be regulated on your grass cannot grow above. Well, that's more regulation that you definitely find in cities. But when you look at it, grass is not legalized. It's just not criminalized. And I'm talking about grass that grows in your yard, some Kentucky bluegrass, whatever. When you look at alcohol, it's legalized. They made it illegal, and then they legalized it. I don't think prohibition is completely done without coming to the realization that we'll eventually have to legalize it again. But that's the cue. It's not decriminalizing it. It's now legalizing it. Therefore, they can gain this monopoly on it. It'll be a regulated monopoly through the government to the chosen corporate donors. So we kind of know where this can head. Definitely by those types of moves. So it's not out of, the realm of possibilities that we can see that Monsanto and whoever decides to grow a whole bunch, patent it all, it ends up contaminating the supply, and it gets harder and harder to find something that's not Monsanto. Well, that might not happen. People look at the corn. Look at the corn. A lot of people are like, well, who's going to buy theirs if they got patent and you can't just regrow it? Well, what if they allow you to regrow it? What if they don't exercise authority on that patent until later on? After 95% of everything being grown has their patent on it. These are things that really should be addressed. Definitely when you see the positive effects it's made. Definitely when people go, doctor said, I don't have any other options left for you. And then you come across this and it's like your life has been saved. And it's saved people's lives. It's improved people's lives. No more are they taking a handful of pills from pharmaceutical companies and still having 10 seizures a day. Now you have them having one a week. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And this is what they try to keep away from you. While your schools of your children will come by, oh, he has ADHD, he needs some Ritalin, some Zoloft, and we'll give him a whole bunch of these other pills, and oh yeah, that'll straighten him out. And we usually see that they end up having, well, we might have to increase the dosage. I don't know. He's just getting worse. We got to do something. You know, your child's starting to get out of control. He's starting to get violent. We're going to have to increase his dosage. And you're like, what? You know, when does it click? And, you know, they'll arrest someone for having a joint, or, you know, fine them, or, you know, 3 strikes, you're out. It's bull. And, you know, I always point to alcohol, look at, you know, how much damage alcohol does to people's lives, to society. And, you know, not everyone abuses it, but the abuse of it is pretty bad. When it happens, it doesn't create a whole bunch of laid-back people. And I'm not saying that should be illegal. Because we know that by making it illegal, it just makes everything worse. More boss king people that running things and killing everybody that tries to oppose them. We really have a government. We don't need 3 of them running around, okay? It's one of those things we know that prohibition doesn't work. Not only do you have to worry about the law enforcement running around shooting at people, you have the mafias and mobs and all that running around. And, you know, even with the regulation of alcohol, you see that a lot of the moonshining, you know, you'll still see incidents happen with violence, and a lot of the times it's law enforcement. It's not that these people were doing something wrong. It's that the law enforcement spent 3 years trying to find a, you know, moonshiner come in with guns. And what if they think he had a gun because he has a stir stick in his hand or something, shoots at him, blows him up? You know, it's violence. Why do we need the violence? Because some guy's out in the middle of the woods making alcohol. Well, he could hurt someone. People drink off the shelf alcohol all the time and hurt people. You know, it's one of those things. It's a really kind of not well thought over argument. Regulating it does nothing for safety, but it does pat the pockets of government and politicians. You know, all the taxes, permits, legalization, all the crap you have to go through. People go, well, you know, when there was prohibition, you know, all that moonshine alcohol, it would make you go blind and kill people. And then you know, well, if you look further into it, you find out that the government agencies were actually purposely poisoning moonshine. Put turpentine, or, you know, whatever they wanted to and stuff like that. You know, prohibition was it definitely, the law enforcement were not really giving any regard to the people that were drinking alcohol. But then at the same time, in certain places, law enforcement would get paid off by the, little back in the alley warehouse saloon speakeasy. They get paid off and they be able to operate, and the law enforcement might get free drinks and free bottles of drinks to take home. So, there's no innocence in this. There's only violence and more corruption by making this stuff illegal and regulating it to the point that people become criminals for trying to start from the bottom. Because I don't know if you want to just start making a liquor and you already know how to do it, you've researched it, you know that you want to make a label. The money it takes to get started, the paperwork, the time, and getting approved at the end of all of that. What's going to make people go, hey, maybe we should get into that business? Maybe if they're already millionaires, maybe they might go, hey, let's make our own alcohol, have our own brewery. It's really, we have corporatism. It's not capitalism. It's corporatism. And I hate when they go, oh, there's capitalism. It's not capitalism. Free market, actual capitalism will benefit more people than what we have now. And I think that we really haven't had too much of a free market in America. We at one point had somewhat, but again, it was quickly taken away. It didn't last long. As long as government has seen a way to get paid from other people's work, well, we fought Britain, and they didn't let us vote and represent. Well, now since you're allowed to vote, we should be able to tax you. Well, the more surveillance, the more control that government gets, the easier it is for them to make sure that they're getting their pay, their cut. And it's more like anymore, it definitely, if you work for someone, you get your cut. Because government decides how much you'll get back. Usually your taxes are going to be taken out. It's the best way to do it usually. Seems you'll get taxed more for some reason if you don't pay it. But it's one of those things that you become a criminal for just trying to survive. And I had another one from We Are Change, this last video I'm going to play. And this is terrorist felons for selling organic food. The story of Rawsome. It's a pretty short clip. But, try and provide for your family and give the community something they want. Something that they crave. Becomes something that makes you a criminal. Makes them a criminal for trying to buy it. And it's your choice. It's food. And they say you shouldn't have access to it. Here we go.
And yes, I was
tortured in jail, forced to do things, treated like, this is the one part of it I want to share with people. My status inside the jail system, as we speak today, is one called a sovereign. I never admitted to it. They interrogated me in a private office inside the jail system. I said I didn't know what they were talking about. They put a special band on me that said, no, we know you are. Later on, I found out the reason why they did that is because the new status called sovereign is one considered as a terrorist. Wow. So I'm now considered as a terrorist. Wow. And treated that way when I go into the jail system. What was the real purpose behind them trying to shut it down, and who was authorizing it? We still don't know the answers to that, but it started from the very beginning. It started when we were in a garage in an alley in which the police would go by and actually stop and roll down their windows when they'd see 40 people lined up in an alley with the garage door open, wondering what the heck was going on inside. And we would make a sarcastic remark occasionally, because it was just dairy at that point. We're just selling the white stuff, okay? And they would we'd hold up a bottle of milk and they'd just take off. Then eventually the health department actually found out that this operation was going on, and that they came and shut it down. You can't run a business out of a garage in an alley. So when that happened, we would sneak in literally every night, the night before we would normally do, which was a Wednesday and a Saturday, and we would do it on the streets of Venice for the next 9 months. Then we found this place on Rose Avenue in which it was an empty lot, and we just drive our trucks in there in the beginning because there was actually no structures on the property. In 2005, of course, the garage thing was happening in the late 90s, 1999. I think that it was closed down in about 2002 when we went onto the streets. In 2005, the health department located us again and wrote us up with all of these violations, in which then we informed them that we were a private membership club and they had no jurisdiction over us. And they left us alone for, if you can believe this, 5 years. We never heard anything back. It didn't mean that they had gone away. It just meant that they were getting more irritated all the time, that we were growing quickly. And that we had busloads of people coming in, dropping off tourists because we had been written up in a magazine as one of the best places to go in LA. I mean, they were probably not happy with any of that. So in 2010, they basically came in, as the video shows, with guns drawn and commandeered the club, tried to close it down, red tagged everything, said you're out of business. We went to there's many attorneys that were members of Rossum. We went to the health department the next day, basically challenged them again, and said, you have no jurisdiction over us. We've tried this in 2005. Leave us alone. They again did nothing for a whole nother year. And then they came in, obviously, with every possible imaginable agency. The FBI, the CDFA, the health department.
And I want to mention, a lot of us might have seen the video when Rawson Foods got raided by the cops, and it was very, it seemed kind of a violent action by the law enforcement on people selling raw foods. That's the response to people selling raw foods, to people who want to buy raw foods. What the hell is wrong with society that we allow that to continue to happen? By people that might not want the raw food. You might want the grocery store food, okay? That's fine. You have that right. But shouldn't these people have the right to that? Stand up with them for their right to the organic raw foods. And you can have whatever foods you want. If you want the organic raw or if you want the grocery store, you can have your choice. People should have these choices and not violent actions taken against them for exercising their rights. Stand up with these people, even if you are not one of them.
The sheriff's department, I can't even remember the list of everybody that came in, arrested me on the spot, and their only way of shutting it down at that point was to back in a 24-foot stake-side open bed truck
pour all the milk out in front of everybody. All the members were still sitting there watching milk being poured out and $100,000 worth of product being destroyed or put on a vehicle, which somebody followed out to the San Fernando Valley to a dump where it was taken and all the food was destroyed. And then since then, obviously, Rawson was gone. Now, there were other issues, so everybody knows. The other issues were, yes, we were on an empty lot in which building and safety was like, okay, if we can't get them on a food-related issue, let's just get them out of there because they've got storage containers on an empty lot. I mean, they tried everything possible. Because it was a private membership club and people had to be signing a contractual agreement, taking their health into their own hands, many people were arguing that process sitting at the front membership table. My guess is many of those people that were arguing, I don't have to do that, were the very agents trying to get in there without signing an agreement. So I would always say to them very nicely, I'm sorry, but read the sign. The sign says we can only allow private people into the club that sign this agreement. They throw their hands, yell and scream, and many of us thought that some of those people were agents. If you go to a store and you're buying raw cheeses and you're buying cold-pressed oils, the main question to ask, and it's a really interesting question to ask, is there a legal definition for those terms? Raw, unpasteurized, uncooked, cold-pressed. And the answer is no, there's not. There is absolutely no legal definition for those terms. So when you're going out and what you think you're buying these days, we've all become label readers, is not what you think it is. The amount of psychological and mental anguish and experience that I've been through led me to believe that a lot of things that I heard online, a lot of things that many other websites were talking about, that I thought were over-exaggerated, turned out to not only be under-exaggerated because I went through those things. And yes, I was tortured in jail, forced to do things, treated like, this is the one part of it I want to share with people. My status inside the jail system, as we speak today, is one called a sovereign. I never admitted to it. They interrogated me in a private office inside the jail system. I said I didn't know what they were talking about. They put a special band on me that said, no, we know you are. Later on, I found out the reason why they did that is because the new status called sovereign is one considered as a terrorist. Wow. So I'm now considered as a terrorist. Wow. And treated that way when I go into the jail system.
Hey, what was interesting is that if you look at all of these charges, they're charging him essentially with a victimless crime. As people know, legal fees are not cheap. And we're so far almost 400,000 plus in the hole for legal fees to dealing with all the shenanigans that we've been dealing with the counties, both the LA and Ventura is still going.
Is it just public attention? Is there any other way people can get involved and help you guys out?
No, I mean, yes, and what you're doing is one of those ways. Financially is another way. Awareness is another way where people are actually speaking about this, writing about it, blogging about it, talking about it in any possible way you can to expose the corruption that's going on right now, especially in our legal system. And it is such an interesting subject because just what you also said reminded me of being chained hand and foot, being put into I can't even describe it, on the vehicle that I had to be transported into a cage that you couldn't even sit down. You had to stand up in a metal cage, chained hand and foot, so you couldn't move at all, chained to the wall, thrown into 4 hours, probably. More than that. Holding cells are you've been in a holding cell, right? Yeah. Okay. It's all it is a concrete bench with a sink toilet in it, right? There's no food in there. There's nothing else, and the temperature in there is probably 53 or 54 degrees. It's very cold. They don't give you anything warm to wear. You're hypothermic within an hour, and you're in there for 12 or 14 hours. Then you're transferred to a jail cell, which looks like probably what Alcatraz looks like now today. All falling apart and rotten and disgusting and completely unhygienic. And then you wake up the next morning and some guy's banging on your bed from next door saying, block your cell door. And I'm like, what for? And he goes, because the sewage is coming down the hallway. And we're talking about feces and urine flooding into your cell that's this deep, stays there for hours with the smell, and then they don't even come to clean it up. And when they do come to clean it up, they come with the one mop. I'm not joking. One mop, which they hand to you through the bars, so you can possibly clean up and disinfect this entire thing. I wouldn't even touch the floor for the next 3 days. Wow. It's insanity what goes on in there. It's really insane.
I think that people need to really understand when it really comes to political, and this is partly a political issue, where you still have the power to vote. So in this case, you can vote with your dollars on what it is where it is you're going to spend it. You can spend it at Costco and support them, or spend it at Whole Foods and support them, or you can support your local farmer who's actually really trying to make a real business. Follow the money. Follow the money. And if you look at the companies that are in the food business or the agribusiness, there's a lot of money behind these guys. And so they're going to protect their interests. And their interest is not just in the distribution aspect. Their interest in this case is, as James mentioned earlier, is that they will lobby to create laws.
Well, and Mike Adams will point out that it's actually even worse than that, because now they're saying you can't grow tomatoes on your front porch or have a chicken in your backyard. Yeah. I mean, this is where we're headed. Yeah. And it really is to limit competition from, infringing upon their huge multi-billion-dollar profits. I
don't want to get into naming names of companies. That's not what I want to do today. But I want people to understand that you need to take the time to look at what's really happening around you in food and who's actually controlling what it is that you can get a hold of. Whether it's in a Whole Foods or whether it's at a Costco or Walmart. These guys they're all involved in the same distribution. So,
well, let me give you a perfect example of a couple things. One is, we all became label readers, like I said, it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. We were educated to see what was in our food. Then when we found out, for instance, that MSG was in our food, we didn't want it in there anymore. So did MSG just magically disappear out of the food? It did not. They've put it in the category of either spices or natural flavors. So the MSG is still in there, but it's not even written on the label anymore. So they're just hiding the fact that they need to make profit of all these items, period.
But we have a great online presence at oliflix.com.
By the way, that's spelled Oliflix. It's pronounced Oliflix because it's olives for Oli, and Flix for the town that it's produced in Spain, which is surrounded by a complete nature preserve.
Yeah, very, very unique product. But James and I, we have plans to essentially resurrect, kind of, in a sense, Rossum, but in a different format this time.
In an online fashion. Yeah. Although I'm still, I would even appeal to anybody that's watching this. We need to continue to go and put more Rossums on the map out there in community-based, private communities, because you still can't do a lot of the things because of all the laws and the codes that have been written. But we need to do that. And most of the food should hopefully be sourced locally and not from long distances.
Yeah, if you go out there and actually support your local farmers and especially these organic growers, where you spend your dollars, big companies are going to pay attention to that.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. You can check out the rest of that video. We Are Change. We Are Change.org. We Are Change on YouTube. When he's talking about supporting your local farmers, your organic farmers, there's co-ops out there. Definitely, if you're someone that into raw milk, or there's co-ops out there where you buy into the herd. You buy maybe cows, or you buy into the present herd, and you take a stake in some of the cows. You're able to, benefit off of the harvest from those cows. So you're able to get the access to that raw milk that way, but they don't like the middleman. They don't like the promotion of it. it's one of those things you don't know about the co-ops right down, maybe a street if you live kind of out of the city, or the ones, right outside the city limits that might be there. I've discovered a lot of them, in my area that, they put in there, these are, grass grazing, non-GMO, 100% organic, raised and fed. So you understand what you're getting. And I think that's extremely important. And, I've slowly been switching my diet over as much as possible and trying to, support the local farmers as much as possible and, doing what I can with the small budget I do have. It's one of those things that you have to support the people that are out there trying to fight for your freedom to have the access there. And like I was saying before, even if you don't mind what you're getting at the grocery store, you're perfectly fine with it. At least stand with these people and let them know, I'm not an organic food eater. I really don't care to go organic. I'm happy with what I eat, but I will stand with you for your right to the access to that organic, to that raw milk. And they'll remember that. And when you have that group that starts going, we should shut down all grocery stores and make it a law you have to just buy from farmers, and be like, no, they stood with us when we wanted our organic. We're not going to now take their way of eating and their source of food away from them. That's freedom. That's liberty. That's the people going, no, we won't allow tyrannical action against others. We might not agree with what they eat. We might not agree with their way of living, but they have that right. They're not harming other people. And we might see their way of living as negative and bad for their health. Well, they might be turning around looking at us the same way. There's people that go, well, that person's fat and overweight and their health is bad. And I've heard people say that look like toothpicks, look nourished, and I'm like, they could say the same about you. They could say the same about me. It's a perception. And I think healthiness does come in different sizes. You could be a little bit overweight and still be healthy. You could be a little skinny and still be healthy. You could be about average and still be healthy. There might be extremes. We shouldn't ignore the extremes, but we shouldn't be chastising everybody. We could let our opinions be heard. You can say, hey, I don't think it's that healthy, but, you have that right. I choose to do this. If you ever want to try this, go ahead. Give me a call. If I ever decide I want to try your way of eating, I'll give you a call. We have to learn to stand with our differences. And I think that's a hard concept for a lot of people to comprehend. Stand with each other on our differences. As long as we're not harming each other. If your difference is, well, I like doing this, and another guy's difference is, well, I like chopping heads off. No. But stand with our differences. It looks like we have a caller here. Caller, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you. Who is this?
Well, this is Mud. This is Mud.
Okay. What would you like to have the conversation?
Man, I just got 2 pennies that I want to throw in there. Is that cool?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right, man. I spend a lot of time thinking about what's going on with everything and whatnot, man. And I just feel that it's time for us as a people, as one race, as, humanity, to come together and see the commonalities that we have other than the differences. Because once we see the commonalities that we have, then we understand that we are no different from anybody else. And once we understand that everybody needs the same thing, that we are all the same, nobody is better than anybody else, then we can all agree to work towards goals that benefit everybody. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Well, yeah, and that's what we need to spread, that message that, we can have differences, but we all want to be free as individuals. We all want to have that freedom to live our lives as we choose.
Yes. I agree 100%. I really do.
Well, thanks for the call.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
You too.
All right.
Okay, and I think that's a commonality that's starting to spring up in the minds of a lot of people, because we get to a point where you see the back and forth so much that you go, why are we fighting each other? All I want is my freedom, because in reality that's what people are seeking, is that ability to express themselves, to be successful for themselves, not to be enslaved by a notion that you must work for these people, or you must, be in this field. You don't think beyond this. This is the way of thinking, this very narrow hallway, and that's the only place you can go, because the rest are walls. And I think if you look at history, the accomplishments of the human race were from individuals that were just so interested in seeking out the knowledge, and they didn't have as many obstacles in their way. Or the ones that did have obstacles risked their lives to seek out this knowledge. And I think that's what, a lot of the so-called truth seekers, or the liberty movement, freedom, whatever you want to call it, we have been doing that. We have been seeking out that knowledge. We have been expressing what we've learned and trying to give you our opinions, our views on these issues, knowing that could possibly make us a target. We could see blowback from expressing our opinions and our viewpoints, sharing our philosophy. But when we do that, we see other people kind of go, I kind of agree with that. I might not agree with all of it, but I think we have common ground there. I think there's room to work. And I think a lot of people have been doing that when it comes to the medical marijuana, or if you look at, the move to maybe question vaccines when it comes to your children. Going, maybe I don't want to inject those, I forget how many drugs a kid gets before they're even 2. And then let alone when they get up to 13, how many vaccines they usually get. But it's outrageous. It's completely outrageous. They're just poked and prodded from the moment they're born. And it's not fair to them. And a lot of parents are recognizing that, and they're coming together to support, others. And the message has been able to grow. And people are looking at their food supplies. They're looking at their travel, their ability to travel places. And calling out the TSA. There was a clip out with a gentleman exiting an airplane, a jet, and leaving the airport, and TSA wanted to pat him down. And he stood his ground and said, no, I already flew from, one place to the other, and now I'm on my way out the airport. No, I'm not going to be screened again. What's this about? And he finally said, I'm leaving. They're like, well, call the cops and you'll be call the cops. I'm leaving. He stood his ground. And I think when more people do that, when it gets so bad that people are like, no, he won't fly, we'll drive a car. And when they try to start that on the highway, people are like, no, we're not doing this. Because it's almost sad to say that we would have to get to that point. Because once people start going, I'm not going to fly, which I don't fly anymore. I'm not going to go through that. When you start refusing that and they try to move it to the highways, do you think that's going to, more people are going to be like, okay, that's okay. It's, for our protection. No, once it hits the highways, your ability to get to work, your ability to get your kids to school, being checked, it would be Nazi Germany. That would be right there, Nazi Germany, as we've all been told about. Checkpoints with, check your papers. That would be what they're doing, not on the border, but in hundreds of miles from the border into the United States with these checkpoints. But it would be all over. They are going after all forms of transportation, and we understand it now. And we've seen videos where it looks pretty evident that police dogs are being basically told to, given a command to act as there might be drugs in the car. We see the subtle motions that's pretty spot on to some of the training that they do to get them to, sit or bark. It's when the people just flat out go, we're not going along with it. And I really think that's why they want your guns. Because that's what they fear. They can battle that civil disobedience with a disarmed populace. They don't fear anything. They will not fear the populace that has been disarmed. And they fear that they won't be able to further their agenda with the armed populace because of the amount of control that they really want. When you get down to the basics, that's what it is. But we, as a populace, still have a chance to withhold our rights as human beings. And, a lot of people will say, well, you can't vote. That doesn't do anything. And I'm pretty much right there beside you. There's got to be some type of reversal, though. We don't want some violent revolution. We don't want it to come down to no fighting. We want a peaceful revolution. And that means reversing the course that we're on. And I think that's the only peaceful way to do it, is reversing the course that we're on. And whether you're a constitutionalist or not, the Constitution is a lot closer to a free world than where we're at. That doesn't mean it's a fix-all. That doesn't mean it's the final, step. I think evolving past the Constitution, where the people can govern themselves, that's a civilized world. I think we can get there. Maybe not in my lifetime, but if we work towards that, and that becomes a fundamental thing that is passed on from generation to generation, when that's embedded in your children, your children's children, when that idea can never die. Ideas can never die. They will always respawn, but what we have to do is grow that idea in the minds of people, not just in America, but around the world. When individuals in the Middle East understand the flaws that we have, when people in Europe, when people in Asia, when people in Russia, when people in Canada, South America, people around the world start understanding what a free individual and a free society is, and how people can live with differences. They can choose whether or not to interact with people. They can't be forced into interactions. But what you find out in society, which you do every day, and it's not because government tells you you have to, is you interact with people that, unknowing to you, might have a completely different way of living, religious, political viewpoint, and you make transactions with them every day. Not everybody knows what the cashier at the store believes in, or the cashier at the gas station, or everybody they work with. Maybe not everybody's even open about their true beliefs. But you interact with them. You don't go, before I hand you this money for my gas, what religion are you? What political affiliation are you? You don't do that. Because that's not needed for the interaction you're having. It's something that we have to evolve in the way we interact with people, and show that we can also not only just have those business transactions or those, high and by, walk bys, but that when you see people that are in need of help, that you're willing to help them. I think that's really most important, definitely in the liberty and freedom movement, because we are being ran by tyrannical people, that we express that, because when people go, well, we're told those, libertarian type people are just nut jobs and they don't care about us, but find out that, that guy, he's a libertarian, because I found that out because he always helped me if he see me struggling with something. He was always willing to help. Kind of got to talking, found out he was kind of a libertarian type guy. Even if they don't consider, themselves libertarians, a lot of times a lot of people will have a lot of common ground with you. Because, again, that's what everybody really, truly seeks out is freedom. Freedom to live their lives and express themselves and provide for themselves. And, a lot of people might go, well, there's people out there that want to harm. And there are. We know this. And a lot of it is fueled by propaganda. They're taught this. That's why it's most important that we start with our youth. Show them compassion. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't show them how to defend themselves. That's most important for survival. But we do need to teach them how to be compassionate people, to have humanity. And when you teach it to the youth, that's something that's instilled in them. And the way that they mold their lives will be based on those morals. And I had a conversation before with people, and I'm like, when you look at the youth in all of nature, there's no creature that is born evil. They're not born wanting to kill everything. And a lot of times they still aren't. If you've ever seen lions laying down in a field, gazelle or antelope are right there by them. They're not just going around murdering all the antelope. Why? Because they only eat what they need, and they understand that food source needs to stay replenished. They don't go out just killing. That's not evil intent that they have. Dogs are not born with evil intent either. But what you can see through evil dog training dogs to fight each other, fight anything, be mean to anything, that's a conditioning. And you can see that in any wild animal that is domesticated, but trained, or not even domesticated, but beat. You can see that in human beings. We have to be the example. And I try to live my life by that. I try not to cause harm to others. I try to be a good person. But I do understand that I have a right to self-defense, and that's my survival. And that doesn't mean that I'm a violent person. That means I understand natural law, my natural rights. And that's what society is missing, is natural law, natural rights, and the true understanding of it, and what that has to do with freedom, and how we get to that type of a society. But we have to reverse course right now. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will catch you this Friday. Stay tuned here on ECY for all the great broadcasts coming up after this. Take care.